And that's the thing, because often it's sold to kind of, maybe these smaller businesses or businesses without the budget as a cheaper alternative. But in reality, for you to be safe and for you to really have a proper managed platform and to, not have those security vulnerabilities in your website, you need to do the due diligence. You need to be a more advanced person, really understanding what you're installing and what those are doing, and really checking and validating all of those different organizations and extensions.
Welcome to Avidly Talks. I'm very pleased to have this first episode of the new year with my brilliant colleagues from the Romi Dexter team down in New Zealand. Are you both in New Zealand?
Yeah.
Today. Yep.
Today. What, you're not normally?
Oh, a little bit of Sydney. We both sort of bounce between Sydney and Auckland.
Okay, makes sense. Well, welcome. Good morning for you guys. Interestingly, I know when we have these group calls, we always end up talking about the weather and stuff with us all around the different locations. But today I've had a call with a colleague in Finland where it's -8, and she said it's warm today. It's -16 here in where I am in the UK tonight. We've got a cold snap. I chatted to Chris, Blue Frog team, and it's Iowa there, so I don't even know what the weather's like at this time of year there. How is it for you guys? How's your summer?
19 degrees, sunny outside, lots of blue sky. We're just starting to get to summer now. It's about a month late, as it is always in Auckland.
Yeah, but Sydney is apparently hitting over 30s consistently at the moment. Yeah, which is a bit much. I quite like the mild New Zealand.
Oh no!
We never
Bring
get
me
either
the 30s,
extreme,
Romi.
really. Yeah.
Give me the 30 degree, please. I was walking the dog tonight and the frost was crunching. I was like, I can't wait for a day just sat in the garden with a beer and the barbecue on.
I'll do that this afternoon for you, Paul.
Oh, cheers, mate. Right, so we're going to talk about WordPress and specifically the WP Engine fallout from the end of last year, the big public rows, the court cases. Nick, for anyone who's not been aware of it or has forgotten about it because we've had a busy Christmas period, what's the story? Can you catch us up on what happened at the end of last year?
Yeah, I mean, so WordPress is an open source platform, but there's a few players in there. There's WordPress itself, the CEO Matt Mullenweg, who seems to be Mr. WordPress from way back, controls WordPress as it was, and there's WP Engine, and there's a couple of other hosting kind of players in that space, but it's an open source platform, right? So you can build on it, you can develop on it. There's lots of developers. It's probably arguably one of the largest CMS platforms globally because it is open source. But it seems like there's been a bit of a spat between WordPress and the CEO and WP Engine. He doesn't believe they should have WP in their name, and there's been a bit of a spat around a particular plugin, which is actually one of the most used plugins, and they've ripped it out from under WP Engine and I've taken it back to WordPress, and there's a bit of an outcry from the developers and I suppose the users out there of WordPress. That broke a few websites, mainly in that SME or small to medium space. I think it's just a bit of scaremongering perhaps, but just some issues.
And Matt, one of the developers, sat next to me yesterday, was looking at something on WordPress, and I don't know if he was signing up for a webinar or something like that, and you have to tick a box now saying, I'm not affiliated with WP Engine.
Wow.
And if you... what was the other thing he put on the site? It was if you want to fund lawsuits against WordPress, pay for WP Engine. It's all very public and petty. Would you go that far?
It seems like it. I mean, and also, why are you doing this in public? Like, it seems a bit crazy. It's not great for either brand, really.
Yeah,
I can just picture their comms teams just like,
Yeah.
like Trump's lot, like what's he tweeted now?
Or
Musk.
Yeah, I think that's like what's caused, probably more noise than anything else because it's just the disruption of this really, really public kind of argument where, the actual specific impact on people, yeah, there were some aspects where it wasn't great, before, they did some workarounds where, people maybe couldn't update their themes or specific kind of extensions and such from WP, but like there were workarounds and such. But especially, if you're a small business or a non-for-profit, these guys often don't have big budgets. They don't necessarily have consultants in house. The confusion around, hey, what's happening? Are we going to lose our website? Of course, not being able to easily update your templates and extensions and such is a pretty major thing, especially on WordPress, because it is one of the most popular. It is the most popular CMS in the world. But that also means that it attracts a lot of hackers. There are also too, it's pretty renowned for a lot of vulnerabilities within a lot of these kind of extensions in the marketplace. So, if there are vulnerabilities and you can't patch them, that's a pretty major concern. So, there was a lot of that kind of stuff that was, pretty distressful and disruptive to businesses. A lot of businesses kind of picking up and now moving. I think it was 36,000, I think was the number. I had, 32,000 websites have already migrated from WP Engine just off the back of this, just because they're not sure what the future is. And yeah, and it, especially I guess when it's open source, like, I love open source. I love the open source community. It's something, and other ventures, where we try and support and such, and in previous lives I've really tried to support. But, it really kind of makes it a bit dirty and kind of really puts a negative thing into that community as well, which is a real shame.
Now, I'm not as smart as Romi, and I'm not like a technical guy, and I get the open source thing. Like it's like a developer. Android, and like we're offering up our platform, and more people can use it, and it will evolve faster, and all of those sorts of things. But I don't know. There's no such thing as a free lunch, right? Like it comes with vulnerabilities or issues, or more people developing, the more plugins, the more that for me was just always something that I would sell against and talk against, but also kind of like as a business owner or somebody who was going to build websites and have built websites in the past, that was one thing that I was always quite concerned about. But open source, I love it. I think it's great, but it's a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing, because often it's sold to kind of maybe these smaller businesses or businesses without the budget as a cheaper alternative, but in reality, for you to be safe and for you to really have a proper managed platform and to not have those security vulnerabilities in your website, you need to do the due diligence. You need to be a more advanced person, really understanding what you're installing and what those are doing, and really checking and validating all of those different organizations and extensions, because that is one thing in a lot of these marketplaces is there's not necessarily the budget, because nobody's paying for it, to fully verify that this is actually something safe and something that isn't easily hacked, and isn't going to put your website and your brand at risk. So, and in my experience, it's always been more expensive. Like in the early days of Hyper Dexter, we actually went down the same path, even though I do have a bit of experience. I probably should know better, of kind of going, oh, your WordPress. Like we had a few clients who had existing WordPress sites, and we had a great partner who had lots of experience in WordPress, but in the end the cost was so high to actually build things initially, and to then ongoing the maintenance of it, because it was just you constantly need to patch, you were constantly needing to even when if something's automated and it's being released, often those things would then break things and you'd have to go back in and fix them, and a lot of our customers just didn't have the budget to be spending this money on going to fix or tweak, because there's not standards in the same way. Like, and don't get me wrong, some organizations definitely have standards, but it's because it is so open and there are so many different ways you can kind of attack it. Every site you get, potentially, if you're inheriting sites, are completely different. So you could tweak this little thing and bring down like an entire function of the site, or the entire site. And even with incredibly experienced, amazing WordPress developers, we kept kind of running into these issues. So it was such a unknown aspect for us, like to be able to quote to people. It just ended up being way more expensive. So there was a point early on where we went, hey, we're HubSpot partners, let's just double down on HubSpot. Sure, the licensing may seem a bit more expensive, but actually in the long run, we found the costs were actually way lower and the customer experience was way better. And we could go, hey, we will deliver this by this date. We won't break it, and it will absolutely work. And you won't, ongoing will enhance your site, but we're not going to have to constantly go back in and keep fixing things because this extension that we've added in isn't working anymore. So yeah,
it's a good point
for us. Yeah.
Romi, like we can't throw too much shade at WordPress partners because there's some great WordPress partners out there that develop amazing websites and maintain and support those websites ongoing, but there is a cost to that, and that, so those continual patches and stuff. I mean, you would have seen that, Paul, like you've been in the game for a long time.
I think it's a decision you've got to make, isn't it, as a company? Sort of accept the benefits with the risk and cost of managing that versus, as part of that also is not going all in on one tool like HubSpot is designed to do. It's not right for every business. They not all want to do that. We have a lot of customers who, I was going to ask you while you were talking, just gut feel, what percentage of HubSpot marketing or CRM customers, roughly, how many are there, how often is it that their website is on WordPress still?
Well over half.
Yeah,
it's especially
huge.
in that SME mid-market. I think the interesting one is like the Sitecors and the Embracos and things like that, those big ones that people spent stupid, like $500,000 on a website. Those ones are going, why the hell have we spent this much money on? I mean, not to move away from the WordPress thing, but it's like, oh, that's a stupid amount of money to spend on a website.
Or they're
going headless CMS,
gosh,
and they're not like a media company. They're just like, I don't know, a real estate company building a headless CMS. Is like,
place for headless CMS, and most of the time it's not for you. Like I've managed a big media company, digital, they're telco, big telcos, lots of websites, headless CMS, fantastic, really good. You've got one website, do not go down headless CMS. It's just craziness. Like the cost, the limitations, like there's just all of the reasons you would use a headless CMS, all of the benefits just aren't there.
One of there are benefits, obviously, if it's, I don't know, it's always been on WordPress. It's not the website where it's hosted isn't the first thing for the business to fix or whatever. We've all sold HubSpot websites, and I think the thing from the end of last year and this story, this public row, is, I think, Nick, you've mentioned how much you talk to customers around there's the risk of plugins needing updating. Romi, you talked about sort of the cost of maintaining your site is higher when you're using WordPress, or the risk of having to update it more is there. Just being conscious of how I word it because of how many of our customers still have WordPress websites. But it's always been, when I've had these conversations, but you won't have those worries. And they say, well, they've never happened to me yet. Yeah, but they could. And this feels like the ultimate example of that. If WordPress is going to sort of literally end up in court battles with WP Engine and putting on their forms, tell me confirm here you're not associated with Engine. That who's going to be next? Like, I know without getting too scaremongery, like I think you said, Nick, but it could easily be another one next, couldn't it?
Well, and because you do have that very clear conflict of interest, like most, so the majority of the sites that have moved off WP Engine now have gone to Pressable. So Pressable is owned by Automatic, who Matt is the CEO of. So, if you have this kind of hosting kind of area that you're, or professional services and kind of SaaS and hosting services kind of arm, like a paid arm that you're the CEO of, and then you're also, CEO or leaders of this other open source community and open source kind of products. It's, there has to be question marks in people's head of, how do you avoid a conflict of interest?
Is that really open source if governance is completely controlled by a single person or a single entity? I know that this, but in theory, practically it is, but ethically, is it starting to not be open source? I don't know.
Yeah.
What's the...
Sorry, on that note, not so much because there's lots of paid, there's lots of, companies who are not non-for-profits, who contribute to the open source community or run particular kind of aspects. But I guess, yeah, it's a bit of a faux pas to kind of do this sort of stuff within these communities, I guess, would
I'm
be
going to say,
the challenge.
what's the
more so.
reaction
Yeah.
been? Yeah,
Yeah,
because as a
yeah.
non-developer, I'm aware of the phrase open source, but
Yeah, well,
tell me how much of a faux pas is this whole public forum?
well, and I guess it's an interesting thing, like, because the general kind of reaction has been, some people, and especially initially, were really kind of supportive of Matt because of, I guess, a lot of people are saying WP Engine is not the hero here. They have they have essentially used this free kind of platform and make a lot of money out of it, and there's kind of a general kind of thought of, hey, suing that actually hurts all of us. Suing this company, suing the main core, foundation of your entire, that your entire business is kind of run on, is that a smart, is that a bit kind of silly, like undermining everything, that feels kind of a bit wrong, but also too, I guess just the way it's been, like, because a lot of the points were quite valid, but then I guess the subsequent level of public argument and actions taken is where the concern is, and where there's been now a lot more kind of backlash against Matt, and and a lot more kind of frustration around I guess the situation that this has put broader organisations in, and the uncertainty that it's kind of now brought around this platform that is the most popular content management system in the world, and so many businesses rely on, and so many non-for-profit organisations rely on. Yeah.
So if business owners are sort of, who aren't, 9 times out of 10 aren't the ones who are really looking after the website, it's only people in our sort of field, I think, who end up knowing really what's going on. So if they sort of looking at what are their options, so you can stick on WordPress. There's pros and cons to that we've discussed. What else can you explore? You could look at other platforms, say, like, if you're a typical SME, maybe that's something like, I don't know, Squarespace, Shopify, if you sell products. What else can you do? What else could you explore around other platforms, other options?
The other platform I'd put out there is Wix. I think Wix is we do Wix every once in a while. I do think Wix is a great platform, especially at that kind of cost-effective level. Also does have e-com and all the rest. But it's kind of more on that basic level. Obviously, HubSpot, we're always going to promote and talk about. I guess the reasons though why I automatically don't recommend Wix to our customers, for instance, is with HubSpot, we've just got a little bit more we can do, and a little bit more control. Although new Wix Editrix is actually pretty amazing, but again, we can have a lot of control around exactly what we're using and how we're using it. We've built out a lot of kind of foundational elements that we can use to very quickly build in best practice and implement solutions. The whole kind of experience and not taking your team in and out of different areas. Like I think a lot of people, when they think about websites, they go, oh, we want to launch, and I kind of get this thing all the time of like, no, we don't want to launch until it's perfect. If you think your website's perfect, you're a crazy person. Like it should never be perfect. You should always be improving and enhancing it. So when you launch a website, that should just be the first point. And my general thing is, if it's better than your current site, launch it straight away, and then have a program to enhance it and make it better over time. But I think having a platform out here that works in a completely different way and does completely different things, and getting your marketing team or your content teams to do stuff here in your HubSpot CRM, and then do stuff over here in your website, in your other website platform, and then trying to get them to properly talk to each other. It just slows people down, and it just means that kind of aspect of constantly enhancing and constantly improving it just becomes so much more challenging. I guess the other thing that I love about HubSpot is just it's got a lot of the kind of built-in, A/B testing or the AI-based kind of testing variants that you can do, adaptive testing, to really kind of work on your conversions. So if your focus is on conversions and conversion paths and optimizing your website to really generate those leads and kind of and get those leads through, then HubSpot is just great for bringing all of that stuff together. You'd have to do so much more work on any other system to really bring all of those elements together to really understand, hey, a person came in at this page, they interacted with this, and they submitted this form, and then we, made $50,000 out of the back of it, or 50,000 euros out of the back of it. Then you can kind of in HubSpot, it's so much easier to kind of track and understand that, and therefore optimize your site. And so many people spend so much money on like Google and Meta and optimizing and spending hours optimizing their ads, but not on their website conversion. I've doubled, increased revenue and ROI from websites tenfold just by optimizing that journey versus and for a fraction of the time that I would have spent on ads. So I think having that and really kind of thinking about what's the point of your website, like why are you trying to do this? If we optimize those conversions, then that's where you're going to get your return. And HubSpot makes that a lot easier than any other platform I've kind of found.
I think even at that's the end output. I think even on a simpler level as a sort of marketer or content manager, just you alluded to the interface. If you're using HubSpot, any of the other hubs, Marketing Hub, CRM, the Content Hub now with CMS is the same interface.
Yeah.
If you can update a deal, you can update a web page.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I was shocked at going into the back end of WordPress for the first time all those years ago. Of like, why is it like this? How is this the most popular? I don't want to slam it too much because it's obviously got loads of other benefits, but when you look at that was where I moved in my previous life when you talked about doing WordPress sites in the past. I moved to building on Squarespace for smaller businesses.
Yeah.
Again, just because of such a nicer, smoother interface.
Yeah.
It's lots more limitations and you hit a ceiling quickly of what you can and can't do.
Yeah.
What I guess one other option we've not talked about is building something completely custom, but that's going to be for...
Yeah. That's not going to be a content management system.
No.
Take ourselves back to 1999. So that's where I started going into code and updating HTML, and it's slow. I probably spent my first 2 years, like I worked in media, and that was our options. We didn't have content management systems at that time, and we were pushing out lots and lots of content. So we knew code and like basic coding and kind of would do that, but it's so much slower.
How do you help people decide? Because I know not everybody is going to go with a Content Hub website, HubSpot hosted website. How do you help people work it out? Where to put their site?
That's
I do actually
for
have
mine.
a big evaluation sheet.
Yes, Romi does.
So if anybody wants to evaluate the website, we've got a really full-on kind of thing where it's got like all of the different features you'd potentially want in a content management system. You can rate them of how important they are, and then score the different platforms for. HubSpot's pre-scored, obviously, but you can use it to score other platforms to do a bit of a qualitative kind of measure of exactly what your overall score is. So it will give you a score, and it'll give you kind of a bit of a radiator kind of color of bad versus good based on your priorities. So I do that. If I really want to go intense, but Nico, you probably do more of it than me. Yeah.
I mean, it's always going to come down to budget, but it's budget versus value versus like what the overarching cost is going to be long term. And Paul, you mentioned Squarespace. Like, we like Squarespace and Wix, and if you're but again, they have to know that they're going to hit that ceiling of a templated website that can only go too far. And then you might spend hours dragging and dropping and trying to get the image and the right thing, and you just never get the padding right, and it'll frustrate. We've all kind of played with those things. We go through a process of like really trying to uncover what's the value. As Romi said, what are you trying to achieve? If I hear another customer go, oh, we're B2B, so the website's not really going to be very important for us. And it's like, okay, but it'll just be there to advocate for us or show us as a trusted partner. It's like, you could pick the wrong website with bad security, and then you're a breach and you're a financial services customer, and you'll bring all of your trust down exponentially. But I mean, really, what are you trying to achieve? And that conversion and, your budget, what is your budget? Where are you going? I don't really like to slag off other platforms, but, I'll kind of talk to the value of personalization, ability to update content. We've gone away from, going through that design user journey, wireframe, complete design, and then building from scratch. So we have a boilerplate, a series of templates and modules equally in the marketplace for HubSpot now. There's some great,
Awesome themes,
spend 2K and
Yeah.
2K US and you get the one shout out there is quite often you get hundreds of modules, which in itself can be quite difficult to manage and navigate when you get too many modules.
I think that's something worth mentioning without turning it. If you want to see this in action, what's the best way for somebody to go and see how a HubSpot page is built? There's countless demos out there, but the module and sections thing is, I think, one of the best things of Content Hub websites for me. So as a non-developer or non-designer, you can be given a set of Lego bricks that will stretch and fit together, but not do, like you said about Squarespace. I run my Cricket Club's website on Squarespace, and just sometimes if a heading's slightly too long and you're trying to do the padding bars, and my mind instantly went to sat at this table at Saturday morning with the kids going, you said you'd be 10 minutes. I know I said I'd be 10 minutes. And it's been 30, but I just can't get it to look right.
I had to
it's
say
amazing.
1 hour.
Yeah.
Just on a heading, one heading.
But I don't know how it works, and we probably don't have enough time to teach me it, but the way that it scales and goes to different screen sizes without breaking, and you can just drag in and move different modules from here to here. The flexibility for non-tech people to update pages is key, and things like, I don't know, our marketing team will be asked, we're doing a webinar, would you be able to make us a landing page that looks like this? It's like, you can make a landing page that looks just like that. It's literally a click of a button, and it can be personalised, it can be all this, that and the other. Because you've been sending emails from HubSpot all day, you can now go and make changes on a website
and
page.
actually that personalised is such a critical thing as well for why HubSpot maybe versus other platforms, because HubSpot's got the HubSpot tags, so you can put that into WordPress. There's plugins to extend to integrate WordPress and HubSpot. You can easily add the forms and all the rest, so that's all really, really cool. And with any other site, of course, you can put the HubSpot tag in everywhere, and that actually opens up heaps of features. Even if you're not using HubSpot Content Hub, you can have pop-up surveys, you can use call to action kind of pop-ups and slide-ins, and you've got all of the tracking in there, so you can kind of get your sources and everything. But there are some of those key features like the smart content. That's a really big one for me, being able to kind of go, oh, you're a known customer, I'm actually going to change out this message to be targeted at you, or you're a business customer versus a B2C customer, so I'm going to change out the messaging for that, or I'm actually going to get a token from your actual CRM record and to display it in the page. Or the other big one, so probably over 50, actually I'd say over 70% of our work now is actually doing web apps. So the brochure sites are super simple. We can get those up really fast and easy, and have a great foundation there that you can, create a great website off and have all the bells and whistles. But then we're finding a lot of our customers are wanting to create portals, maybe for their partners or their agents, or even for their internal teams, where it's like maybe HubSpot CRM itself is pretty full on. You can do lots of things, but maybe you've got somebody on the road and you want them to have a very, very specific experience, or maybe you've got a slightly old school kind of team who just it needs to be very much just taken on a journey to do exactly the right thing and not be given too much flexibility. So, we're doing, or maybe you need to have an event management platform or CPQ. So what we're actually doing is a lot of work using the HubSpot CMS and HubSpot CRM, so no extra licensing, to also build out those capabilities. And I think, again, that's, when you are looking at like a Wix or a Squarespace or a WordPress, and that's one of the key things I do ask people is like, hey, in the future, I know right now you're not doing this, and it's a much bigger cost to do these things, and kind of that's maybe the next utopia. But do you ever want to go there? Because if you ever want to go there, then creating this foundation here and paying for this licensing is probably smarter, because if you do want to go there in the future, then we're either going to have to do some kind of weird handoff between the systems, which just means it's going to limit your user experience and your opportunity, or we're going to have to rebuild the site anyway in HubSpot in the future. So, let's thinking about the future and where you're going, I think is a really cool part. And if you've got, if website's not just we don't really care, if website's actually a core part of your ecosystem and your digital strategy and your marketing strategy, then, thinking about that foundation and where we're going with it and where those opportunities are core, and creating that foundation in HubSpot will definitely set you up to make that stuff so much easier in the future.
And I think we've only talked about the website side of Content Hub really there. We've not even at all scratched the surface, never mind going beyond that with Content Hub features. You talked about testing and optimization. I saw a beta in the list today of AI powered A/B testing that can make the suggestions for you, as well as automatically updating and choosing the winner. And it's been doing that for a while, but they're kicking that on a notch. The Copilot creating pages for you. These are all things that come with Content Hub that we haven't even mentioned.
Totally.
We've just
built
talked
in
about the website.
Rush, built in GCP, it's it's.
So we're gonna if you hopefully you talked about the if you're
GSC,
not a customer,
not GCP, GSC, Google search
when
console.
when you mentioned you're not a customer, I'm going to show you a different headline. Hopefully we can go full circle. If you've seen the CTA I'm about to describe that we've not yet built, to come and compare Content Hub to your WordPress site. We're going to show a CTA on our website that our CRM has picked up that your company has WordPress tracking codes and your web technology is WordPress. We're going to show you this bank of content. This is the first one we're recording of. If you've watched this and you've heard me say this after seeing that CTA, please let me know in the reply to the automated email I'll send you. Just to finish, what's something that somebody can do who's watched or listened to this, who's got a WordPress site and wants to check that it's going to be safe in the future? What's the thing they should go and do?
Well, I think really it's just about, so if you're hosting yourself, just making sure that you've got somebody dedicated to constantly checking and updating those plugins, or that you've turned on kind of automated updates. But even if you are doing automated updates, if your environment supports and allows that, you still need to be going in and checking that those automated updates haven't broken something, because that's pretty common as well. WordPress itself has done a lot of things to kind of update security, but definitely like around the plugins, it's open source. Anybody can really do anything there. Make sure that all of your plugins are reputable plugins and from reputable businesses. I tend to steer away from completely free things when it's that kind of aspect, because it takes potentially hundreds to thousands of hours for some of these developers to create, especially like the really complex kind of plugins. If they're not making money off licensing, how are they making money? So that's something you just always need to be thinking about, because you don't want that to be something where, maybe there's actually a bad player who's putting something out there. You want to make sure that they're solid and kind of read their website and read, their security practices and what they're doing and how it's considered. You want to read comments in detail to kind of see what other community members are kind of saying, to ensure that there's not known vulnerabilities or known issues, or how responsive this company has been if there has been vulnerabilities in the past. Again, because it's one of the largest platforms, it is a target for hackers, so they do get more hacks just because of that, because if I've got millions of websites to that I can hit, I'm going to hit that first rather than smaller players, which is not the fault of the platform, but that's just kind of a consideration. And then if you're using a third party to kind of manage and maintain your site, I guess making sure that they're doing that, and maybe even asking for a contract or something where they put in writing what their actual process is for the regular updating, checking of vulnerabilities on their site, just to make sure that's valid.
We've got WordPress team in-house at Avidly, and we've got, as we've all said, we've all got experience with WordPress, so you can always ask for audits or advice or anything like that. And I think, Nick, have you any last words for anybody who's perhaps wondering what to do and how to evaluate whether to stay on WordPress or move to a different platform?
I'd just echo what you said, Paul. Go to your trusted partner, your Avidly partner globally, because we've got WordPress and HubSpot, and I think we always go at things with the customer's best.
It's like you said, you build on Wix, Romi. I've worked on Shopify sites for customers. We'll help you.
We'll do what's best for you, for your budget, for your requirements, and for your strategic client ongoing growth, and like where you want to head. Like, what is the best option now, but what will give you scale and ability to grow, and security and personalization and better customer experience and better experience for your employees. I think is just so critical.
Massive.
Somewhere nice for them to work that they find easy, that they're not banging their head against the wall just to stack up a page or edit a heading for their cricket club.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Check out the other. We're doing a whole bunch of content around not just WordPress, but Content Hub and pros and cons and when to switch, when not. Different features as well. We're going to be showing more of those things on social media. So check out Avidly HubSpot Solutions on LinkedIn or avidlyagency.com, and head to Hype and Dexter's pages on LinkedIn as well. And we're going to be doing lots more stuff together to showcase what Content Hub can do. But if you've got any questions, WordPress very well may be the right decision to stay on there. It might be right to move to a different platform entirely we've not talked about. We can help you work that out. But back to the podcast. If you've enjoyed this, leave us a comment, leave us a 5-star review. Please hit the follow button. There'll be more episodes coming every Friday. Thank you, Romi. Thank you, Nick. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome to see you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Sam.
Hey, did you enjoy this episode? Then be sure to leave us a comment, a review, and hit that follow button. See you next episode.